iPhone 6. Enhance your user experience with this 16-gig iPhone 6, which features a 4.7-inch Retina HD display. Plus, enjoy a 1-year calling plan with 4 gigs of data and unlimited talk and text per month.
Thank you very much. So phone and calling plan together goes over, but it's closest to the actual retail price without going over. And Kanisha.
7,500.
7,500. 7,500. Mark.
What was yours?
7,500.
7,501.
7,501. Rachel. $850.
$930.
$930. Man, I hope the marketing people at Apple are watching this.
All right, let's go, go, go!
Welcome to Cordkillers, our mission to report the intel from the front lines of the cord-cutting revolution so that you, my friends, whether you want to cut a cord or not, can figure out what you need to do to watch what you want, when you want, where you want, and on any device you please. I'm Tom Merritt.
Hey, man, I'm Brian Brushwood, and I don't know if you figured it out, but $7,500 was a bit much for an iPhone and a year of service.
High? That was high. It was
a
on the
little
high
bit high. But I think my favorite part of that is the second guy who chimes in, being like, "And one." But yeah, that was a clip on the Price is Right official YouTube channel. Funny stuff. Drew Carey, good guy.
Yes, I'm glad that the Price is Right still.
Oh, by the way, for the people who are like, well, how much was it? It was like $1,100, I think. It was
1,900. And Zach and I were trying to figure out how they calculated that because we assumed they must have thrown in the year of service to get to that number.
Well, yeah.
But what carrier charges even that much? I think it's like $1,600.
Wait, was it $1,900? I thought it was like $1,190 or something.
No, I think I'd have to go back.
Now, yeah. You know what? Write us a letter at cordkillers@gmail.com.
Tell us which of us is closest, and we win. The Price is Right.
Oh, right on, man.
Hey, welcome to the show today, Mr. John Anelio. How's it going, Mr. John Anelio?
It's going great. It's going great. I'm excited to be on the show. I was telling you before we went on air that I was looking into cutting the cord, and when I did a Google search on it, you guys were one of the first to come on. I'm like, oh, hey, Tom and Brian have a show about this. I should listen to this. So I tweeted you guys, and you invited me on, and I'm psyched to be here. So thanks. This is on my mind lately.
So we actually have some SEO?
Apparently.
You were on the first page. I think I put cord cutting, and I think you guys were on the first. But now I think, Tom and I, we have like some connections via like Google and Hangouts and stuff. So it may have given you a little bit of, a little bit of juice because of that. But on my page, it was in the first page.
So real quick, just to assess your journey, you were Googling how to cut the cord. Like, have you cut the cord since then, or where are you at? Like,
yes,
oh, wow.
I cut it. Yeah, we, my wife and I, my wife got laid off back in June, and we both had very old cars. And her car died about 2 months ago, and my car died about a month ago. And so we went from having no car payments a month to having 2 car payments a month.
So you had to tighten the belt in other places. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So, and we
didn't want
really
mode of transportation, or do I want the possibility to watch the Reels channel at 3 a.m?
Exactly. And we didn't watch a ton of live TV anyway. We really don't watch a whole lot. And we've been Netflix users for like since the beginning of streaming. Like we had it as a DVD service. And, we've used Amazon Prime for a long time too. So we really watched like 80% of anything we did watch via Netflix and Amazon anyway. And it was a little bit of a harder sell for my wife, but then when I like really did it, I'm like, we could save $80 a month if we cut this. She was like, yeah, let's cut it. And we did. Yeah, and about 2 weeks ago, she was like, I don't miss it at all. I don't miss it one bit.
No kidding. Wow, that's cool that she had a turnaround like that, like once she actually experienced it.
Yeah, she had a couple things that she used to watch that, but it's really not a big deal. And our son, who's 8 years old, watches everything on Netflix or Amazon anyway, so it really was no big deal. And it's nice to save that money. And it's also good to sort of have less choices in some ways, because because that was the thing. I was DVRing a lot of stuff that I was hopelessly behind on, that I was never gonna get to. I had like complete seasons of stuff that I was like, well, still haven't watched this. So it's a much I love it. I'm so happy I did it. Just besides the money saving part, I just like that it sort of simplifies things too. So it's really I'm recommending it to everybody.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Well, I did a horrible job of introducing John. John is a singer-songwriter. You may have heard many of his songs. He's written songs about NaNoWriMo, George R. R. Martin, also co-host of the Functional Nerds podcast with Patrick Hester. So check that out as well. But a lot of you who may be on that tip, getting ready to go into the cord-cutting universe like John just did, might have a new option to help push you over the edge, and that is our primary target. Brian, I have to admit, I forgot the name of our segment there for a second.
Big news, man. This has been legitimately the only legit reason that you could say I would love to join your crazy cult of cord-cutting revolutions. People who want to watch what they want, when they want, on whatever device they want. People who are comfortable buying episodes piecemeal rather than joining the all-you-can-eat $100 a month buffet of cable television. However, I have a disease, and it's called an addiction to watching the San Francisco Giants live on television. And as a result, I can never do it. Sports fans have been the #1 holdout. But are you, from this story, I mean, is this the real deal, Tom? I need you to parse this for me, because I got so many tweets saying, well, it's over. I'm cutting the cord. As a sports fan, finally, I can watch whatever I want because ESPN is now totally free of cable. Which
it kind of depends on what kind of sports fan you are. Here's what we're talking about. Dish announced something called Sling TV. It is an internet-only cable television package. You have 12 channels, all right? That's it. But it's also only $20 a month. And as we just alluded to, 2 of the channels are ESPN and ESPN2. Now, the other channels I think are just as important in other ways. Disney Channel, ABC Family, Food Network, HGTV, Travel Channel, TNT, CNN, TBS, Cartoon Network, and Adult Swim.
All right, you had me at just those last 2.
And a Maker Studios channel.
Real quick, just to because there have been we've talked about the Dish Hopper with like a Sling box capability built in. We've talked about, Sling boxes before. This is not hardware. This is entirely a cloud-based service. Is that right?
Correct. You'll be able to get it on the web. They'll have iOS and Android apps. They'll have apps for Roku, Fire TV, Google's Nexus player, the Xbox One, which they even have a deal with Microsoft where you can get a free month trial on the Xbox One. And it'll also be available for LG and Samsung smart TVs. No contracts. You just pay month by month. You can cancel whenever you want. It has limited DVR functionality. You can pause, rewind, and fast forward. Some shows you can start over from the beginning if you tune in the middle. Not all of them. Some of them will be available for 3 days. It's not full DVR functionality, but that's not really what they're pitching here. What they're pitching here is, hey folks, need to catch the game? Most people, not some of you are exceptions, most people don't DVR those. They want to watch them as they're going on. So that's what we're giving you.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, the media that I've seen on this, the articles that I read, sort of poo-pooed where it's like, oh, I don't know, it's like stripped down, neutered cable TV. But I got to tell you, the channels they have, 80% of what I would watch on cable TV, if I mean, outside of broadcast stuff, I mean, and even broadcast stuff, I would prefer to watch that on Hulu because I don't have to program a DVR to grab it. I'll just tune in and watch it then. I mean, this is the perfect supplementary package in order to wean someone off of the cable world, right?
And they're even talking about, they haven't detailed them, like special packages that you can add on for $5 a month, like a kids package or a news and info package, which will have additional channels above those first 12. John, would this push you back from being a pure cord cutter into having some sort of package?
It's pretty compelling. I'm not a big sports fan, but even I went out to dinner with a couple friends the other night, and when I was telling them that I did this, and I was explaining it to my one friend. He was sort of like, well, what do you do for sports? And I was like, yeah, there's really nothing you can do for sports. He's like, oh, I need Sports Center. Like I have, like, and I think many people in the world really just need their sort of sitting down and like watching the same episode of Sports Center 7 times throughout the day. So,
and this does give you access to watch ESPN, so you can watch it as many times as you want.
There's something very calming about watching Sports Center, I think. So I think for people like that, it's really good. The kids focused stuff is something very interesting too, because you know, I think a lot of what a lot of people, their kids are on their mind in terms of what they're going to watch. And while Netflix and Amazon are going to have a lot of what you need, if you're a kid that sort of keeps up to date on shows, then this is and I think the price point is really what's a really positive thing, because it's like, ooh, $20 a month for all that stuff. That's not bad.
Plus also, keep in mind, John, that they specifically said, forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, Tom, that there's no contracts, no long-term engagement. It's $20 a month until you feel like stopping, and no harmsies.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna, for $20 to just try it for a month and see if you like it, I think they're going to get a lot of users. I would be, you know, as of right now, is there going to be like a DVR function with it, or is that not going to happen at all?
There's licensing issues. So sometimes you'll tune in midway and you'll see a little button that says start from the beginning. So even though you tuned in 15 minutes after the hour, you could say, yeah, jump back, start to the beginning, and they could do that. Other times they can't. So it's a little bit iffy being worked out. However, one thing I don't think we mentioned yet is that they are also opening up on-demand content. Some of these have arrangements where they have deals worked out with the cable operators where there's a vast library of on-demand programming of all their previous episodes, Hulu style.
I don't know about all their previous episodes. I didn't see anything about that. The only thing I saw was up to 3 days after air.
Man, I could have sworn. You know what? I'll have to.
May be wrong about that myself.
I'm going to scour through this real quick, but I could have sworn I saw that some of them had arrangements where, and again, this is obviously not all, but I could have sworn that some of them had on demand.
Well, honestly, I don't think that's
here it is right here. Here it is right here. In the Engadget article, it says you can also do what Sling TV is calling Network View, which allows you to see all programming available from the networks, including on-demand content. So
including
there will be
some on-demand. Yeah, and the other article I read said up to 3 days after air.
Okay. All right.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, that the Engadget article implies what you're talking about, which is past episodes. Although even on DirecTV right now, I get on demand, and times they only show like the past 5 episodes.
Right, but that's also what they do is they have this rotating stock of like old stuff that, you know, if you're like, I just want to see some DIY stuff, let me look. Oh yeah, I like this stuff, and you throw it on.
Here's the thing, though. I would pay for Hulu Plus before I would rely on this service for on-demand stuff. The compelling thing here to me, and I think John kind of hit on it, is I want to just turn on the TV. I don't want to think. I don't want to choose. I'm the kind of person who just likes to turn on ESPN and have SportsCenter on in the background and watch it. Or, and this is where I think these other channels come into play, I just want to have House Hunters on from HGTV and take my mind off it. I just want to have Food Network. I just want to have TNT. Cartoon Network, Adult Swim, they all play into that. The one thing that I haven't been able to convince Eileen about, if we switched off DirecTV, is like when she just wants to turn on the television and have something on that she doesn't mind but doesn't take too much of her attention. There's no replacement for that until this.
So I wonder if this could be the gateway drug to lure her into cord cutting, in that you guys, you have DirecTV, but imagine if you're like, hey, I'm going to get this extra service. And then it's like, oh, hey, you're home. Look, you don't even have to leave the Xbox environment. Just click this button, whatever you want.
Yeah, that's totally what I've been doing. I've been boiling the frog, right? Like,
I'll make sure to tell Eileen you called her that. Go ahead.
But just to be clear, I do not think of my wife as a frog. But yeah, I have been like easing her into, like, she watches Netflix more often. She watches the TiVo. I make her set up season passes surreptitiously on the TiVo, like, oh yeah, your season pass for Vampire Diaries is on the TiVo, so that she's using the over-the-air. You combine over-the-air with the forthcoming HBO online-only service, this Sling TV service, Netflix and Hulu.
I mean, you're done, right? At that point, like, what's left? I mean, if there's anything Okay, let me put it this way. If you do that and there's anything left that you want, my guess is you can afford to buy it at $1.99 to $3.99 per episode from then on.
I think it depends on, and again, I'm not a big sports fan, and I imagine it depends on the market that you live in. I live in New Jersey, so I know if you want to watch the Yankees or the Mets, they have specific channels that they're on, and they're pay channels. So that's, you'll get a game every once in a while on ESPN, but if you're a hardcore fan of those teams and you're not going to get every game through ESPN, and your only bet is still going to be cable, because even over the air, you're not going to get it over the air. So I think it depends what kind of sport you're into, and if you're someone who has to watch every game. So I think cable is still going to hold a lot of the sports part of it. I don't think this is quite enough for huge sports fans.
Yeah, there are alternatives for breaking news. There's the Sky News app on Apple TV. There's Bloomberg TV apps. There's plenty of places online to get streaming news, breaking news, without having to have a cable subscription. The two things that I can think of, one John just mentioned, which is your local team, which is always blacked out from the MLB, NHL packages. And I want to watch the finale of Walking Dead.
Right alongside
with
everyone
the rest
else
of the world.
Yeah.
And I can't, because I don't have cable, and so I have to wait until it comes on to whatever service I buy it from tomorrow.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's fair to say that right now, especially in light of this announcement, it has never been a better time for somebody who wants to quit cable to quit cable. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah.
Okay. With
the
that
only
being,
thing that's holding me up here is these little details like, well, what do they mean by on demand, which is still kind of vague depending on what source you look at, and when. They just said soon.
in light of all of this, I have a shocking announcement to make.
Oh my gosh.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cordkillers of the world, this week, my family subscribed to cable.
Why? You didn't tell me this.
Quite honestly, there is some fine programming out there on cable. For example, one channel I don't see on this Sling package are the fine folks over at National Geographic.
Fine. Well, then I can cut mine, because you're not going to use my Sling box to watch National Geo channel anymore.
Yeah, okay. For the record, I've been sans cable and stayed sans cable even as Hacking the System premiered earlier this year on National Geographic. I just watched it on Tom's Sling box, and it was really great. However, what twisted it for me was I believe the premiere, and forgive me if I'm wrong on this, I was told I could share the date, and then I was told I couldn't share the date, and then I looked back at the email and it says, oh, until mid-December, and I'm like, oh, I guess I can share the date. And last I heard, Hacking the System, the premiere of the full season on starring yours truly, is coming out on January 19th on National Geographic. They're going to air 2 episodes in an hour-long block for the premiere. Love it if all of you guys went and saw it. To be honest, Tom, I didn't mind not having cable because I got to watch it up here in the studio, but my kids have been so excited and talking about it, and I'm like, I'm not going to invite my kids up to watch it in my studio over my shoulder. So it's like, I just want them to have the Daddy's on TV experience of watching live TV, seeing a promo.
There was the Sling Catcher app for Roku that I could have set you up with, but that's whatever. That's fine.
Regardless, but what we did, and this is the great thing, if you avoid getting embroiled in a contract, I think it's like Bonnie was like, Brian, it's going to be really expensive because we don't have a contract. I'm like, oh my God, how expensive is it going to be? It was like, well, for the basic package, including National Geographic. It was like, well, will we have a DVR? She's like, yeah, we'll have a DVR. I was like, well, how much is it going to be per month without a contract? She's like, $60. And I was like, that's great, man. If I could pull the cord on that. Plus, also, I know that Game of Thrones is coming out soon. So I'm gonna hop on for like 6 months and then pull the cord again.
Well, but you might get the HBO streaming.
Well, as soon as that comes out, because I did hear that that's supposed to be available by the launch of next Game of Thrones.
That was the rumor,
right?
yeah. We haven't got confirmation on that, but that was the leaked memo sort of implied that. Well, I'm shocked. I have never been shocked, Brian, more since the year I was born, 1970.
1970?
Yep.
What a coincidence, Tom. Do you realize that 1,970 is exactly the number of patrons we have at patreon.com/Cordkillers? They're donating
amazing.
over $2,000 an episode to keep us live, loud, and independent, man. How cool is that?
We are getting so close to our goal of $100,000 per episode where you physically own me and Brian.
Although we are really, sincerely, only 30 donors away. We are in the home stretch here. If you are on the fence and you keep thinking, oh, I ought to throw these guys a nickel an episode, we'll take that nickel for the record. Just sign up for a nickel and say you're in, and we will rub your shoulders and tell you you're super tall.
Also, if you're like, wait a minute, didn't you do this shtick before? I thought you already hit 2,000. We had to remove all the people whose credit cards are declined.
Yeah.
So if you're one of those people whose credit card was declined and you're like, oh, I have a new credit card, I haven't signed back up, come on back.
Yeah, we never stopped loving you. In many ways, the big boy never left. Come on.
Exactly. Now let's do some signals intelligence that those 1,970 people are paying us to do. So earlier this week, Torrent Freak reported that some VPN users were noticing new blocking of Netflix. Now, a lot of people use VPNs, virtual private networks, to mask their IP address for security reasons. And VPNs can be anywhere in the world. So a side effect of that can be that if I say am in Australia and I want to pay for the US version of Netflix, because there is no Netflix yet in Australia, I could use a VPN to make that happen. Otherwise, Netflix region blocks you. So the Android app of Netflix was forcing the use of the Google DNS, which essentially all that means is it makes it harder to use certain unblockers, some location unblockers. And then several IP ranges from different VPN services, particularly TorGuard, noticed access problems or its IP ranges were being blocked. So a lot of people thought, oh, Netflix is starting to crack down. They're starting to try to fight back. Hulu did this several months ago. In fact, I use a VPN whenever I'm on hotel Wi-Fi and in an airport. I can't watch Hulu because it says, oh, you're on a VPN. We assume you're trying to break the law, even though I'm actually in the United States. However, a Netflix spokesperson told the Next Web that Netflix simply uses industry standard methods to prevent illegal VPN use, and the company isn't handling VPNs any differently than before. So it's kind of they're saying we haven't changed anything. We don't know why people are noticing more, but it's all been happening already.
There's one thing about the way all of these stories have been presented that always irks me, and I may be wrong on this. I am not a lawyer, etc. But the phrase breaking the law really irks me because that's not the case. As I understand it, there is absolutely zero illegal about accessing your account from a foreign country using a virtual private network. It is, however, a violation of the terms of service in the contract that you have agreed to.
So you're breaking the civil law.
No.
You're breaking it's tort law.
You're breaking a contract is what
which is against the law.
Okay. No, it's not
You go to civil court to say this person broke my contract.
No. Okay, we need a lawyer to chime in. I seriously want somebody.
And thankfully, we have a musician, John Anelio, to weigh in on this.
You know, when I was reading this story before, what I thought when I was sort of tweeting and Facebooking about a month ago when I was about to cut the cord, and I asked people, you know, some of the things that they do, and some people were like, well, then I get a VPN so I can watch my my BBC shows or my, you know, overseas shows, and so I looked into it because I didn't even know what they were talking about. I wasn't even familiar with it, and it's one of those things where it's a time money thing for me because I have no idea how to even set something like that up, and you know, once my head starts spinning a little bit, I'm like, oh, if I really want something, I would just buy it. Like I wouldn't go through that. But I don't know how hard it is to set up a VPN or not. But when I started looking into it, I'm like, I don't think I need to do that.
It can be very easy. I use one called Private Tunnel, which all you do is install it, and then you pay for a certain amount of data. I paid for data like 3 years ago, and I'm still using that block. I think I paid for like 500 gigabytes of data. And then you just turn it on anytime you're like, yeah, I'm going to log on at the airport, so turn on Private Tunnel so that I'm blocking. I'm routing all my traffic through there. I can't get packet sniffed, etc.
Cool.
But, you know, Brian, I actually 100% agree with you. I'm just playing devil's advocate. It is a terms of service violation to do this, but it is a terms of service violation. So whether it's breaking the law or not, these companies don't want you to do it because it breaks their agreements with the content providers who are trying to restrict it to regions.
That's fine, but it's just this trend that I've noticed throughout the past year of us doing this show is people use the phrase breaking the law, and the problem is that conjures a very different set of images. For example, when you break the terms of the agreement, the punishment is, for example, if I were to fail to show up and turn in episodes of Scam School, I would be in violation of my contract with Discovery, and Discovery, as punishment, has the option to fire me for not doing the thing that I said I was doing. At no point am I breaking the law by failing to turn stuff in. That's the weird part to me.
Yeah, and honestly, you should be prepared, folks who use VPNs or rely on VPNs for more than just your security and privacy, that this sort of stuff is going to happen. At the same time, the internet always routes around. So if you are the kind of person who's willing to keep up, there are generally workarounds to these kind of blocks as soon as they appear. In fact, there's even extensions out there for browsers that cycle through different IP addresses. So it turns
this is
into
great.
an arms race.
I actually really quick, and again, I look forward to the emails we're going to get. I tweeted out that question just now while you guys were chatting, and I got 2 people saying, I'm not a lawyer, but no, you could be sued, but you can't be prosecuted. And another guy says, technically, yes, a contract is deemed as mandatory as a law for the parties. So I don't know. We'll see.
The second one, the first one is right. You can't be prosecuted. You can be sued. And the second one is what I was trying to say, which is
you could get sued for doing nothing wrong.
If you consider a civil lawsuit to be a legal matter and you are found, if you lose a civil lawsuit, you've therefore broken a law, so to speak. It's not what people mean when they say breaking the law. Breaking the law,
when something's illegal, it indicates that you're committing a crime. It is not a crime to use a VPN to try to let's say that. Is that fair enough?
That's exactly right.
It is not a crime to use a VPN to access Netflix. Netflix might just kick you off, though.
All right, let's gear up instead.
All right, fine. If you insist, sir.
There's a lot of gear today. The gear section is usually kind of the thinnest section because people aren't putting set-top boxes out every week. But the Consumer Electronics Show is happening in Las Vegas, so we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about today, and we probably have some stuff to talk about next week. Most of this has to do with streaming services partnering up with TV makers, which may bring doom to Brian's vision of having your streaming box separate from your television. Then again, it may not. Nobody may buy these things. Haier and Best Buy Insignia are partnering with Roku. Roku already partners with TCL and Hisense. These are usually bargain brands to bring you televisions with Roku, essentially the same Roku operating system that's on a Roku box or a Roku stick, just built into the television. Future models will support 4K. And in fact, Roku is now on the Netflix recommended list of televisions, which also includes televisions from Sony, Sharp, Vizio, and LG. Netflix is looking for performance criteria targets that include things like fast app launch, fast resuming of video playback, the ability to power a TV directly into Netflix apps, and creating a list of Netflix recommended. Then there's also some Firefox OS TVs. One from Panasonic will run Firefox OS in its 4K TV, and another from a company that's using Firefox OS called Matchstick. At least the product is called Matchstick. It's kind of an open source Chromecast. We've talked about it before. They're partnering with Philips and TCI to create basically what Roku's doing for Matchstick. So the Firefox OS Matchstick implementation is built into those televisions.
So the Firefox OS Matchstick, I understand that it's a competitor to Chromecast, but when I read that pitch, that sounded to me like they were building it integrated into televisions. But then as we look at the website, there's clearly a gizmo, a little matchstick.
Yeah, there's both. Both of those things are true.
Okay, great. Got it. Weirdly, I don't mind it so much. I mean, it's all about compatibility, isn't it, right? We're starting to consolidate into a few standards that make it easy to sling media up to your television. And if I mean, I'm not, I mean, you know me, it's like I want my TVs to do one thing, and that's look real pretty. And everything else I want delegated to a more competent entity. But
well, hold on, Brian. I'm getting a call from 2012 Brian Brushwood.
Yeah,
He's incensed.
Yeah. Oh, is he?
At the idea that people would build these operating systems into the televisions.
Yeah. Tell him he needs to not eat so much, and tell him to work out more.
You should work out more.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's from Brian. Okay.
Oh God, this is why I have that complex. I remember that phone call now.
It all happened in the past. No, but so you seem to have softened on this idea, but I'm still convinced by you that a lot of people are not going to buy a television because of this. John, what do you think?
Well, I was going to ask that because I have a Roku 3 and I was a early adopter for the first Roku. I feel like I was probably one of the first people to buy the very first Roku, and I upgraded to the Roku 3 mostly because besides the quality part of it, was the big killer feature for me was you were able to plug earbuds into your remote and have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And I was able to watch movies at night again because, my son sleeps like right next to our room, so I wasn't able to watch anything at night. And that was a big feature. So I like upgrading it through that, and we don't have an awesome TV anyway. I mean, I don't know if I would buy a TV just because it had. I mean, I'm pretty brand loyal to Roku at this point because it's done everything I've wanted it to do. But I guess it would just depend whenever I'd be in the market for a new TV. If it had the Roku built in, that's fine. But the Roku boxes are so inexpensive, and all those set-top boxes are generally not all that expensive. That to spend $100 on that, really no big deal. Now, if it's built into the TV, does it still have like similar software upgrades and that type of thing? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, this is the problem, right? This is my beef with the whole thing, is it may have software upgrades, but it will never have hardware upgrades. With the exception of, I believe was it a Samsung that had some kind of like removable pack or whatever?
I think you're right about that.
But even then, that's kludgy and slow and dumb. It's like in a world where we could just buy the Chromecast version 8 and just for $20 in a taco, take it out and pop it in, and then all of a sudden you're super slick. That's the world I want to live in.
Yeah,
I mean, essentially that's what the Chromecast
have a smart TV sticks are about. I find it to be the interface to be really non-intuitive, and I like the Roku a lot better. It's way smoother. I mean, they have a TV that's a couple years old already, so maybe they're much better now, but I find I much prefer the sort of to keep them separate.
Well, because the devil's advocate argument I always made with Brian in the past was, well, your TV can be upgraded. Just like a Roku. But you know what? I have that original Roku too, John, and I had to finally retire it because it wouldn't get the last operating system upgrade. And I don't mean recently. I mean like a while ago, within the past year. So I was like, well, fine. I'm just going to get, a different Roku. Because, right, $70, it's not that expensive.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but I could see them melding into one thing at some point too. I mean, and I don't know. I don't have a super strong opinion on it, but I'm perfectly happy with having a separate box for now.
Well, and also, I think my biggest complaint over the years, and you're right, Tom, in that my position has softened because the technology has increasingly quickly gotten better and better. And as I've told you, I'm deeply in love with my Fire Stick TV interface of just being able to talk to it. It still doesn't work as fast as I want or as often with the right amount of accuracy, but it is light years ahead of where we are. When 2012, Brian, that thin, svelte, strong guy, I do believe there's a baseline level for video and for search capabilities, at which point I'll stop complaining. If all televisions, but we're not there yet. I've never seen a smart TV. To be honest, if take any of the top of the line devices, if that is what was built into a television, still not good enough for me to believe that every television should be built in with that.
It strikes me as one of those things that if I bought a new TV today and it came with Roku, because it was like, oh, that's the TV I want. No, it has Roku. That's great. I would use it for a while. Yeah. And then eventually Roku 4 would come out, and I'd be like, oh, yeah, I'm just never using that again, am I? And all of a sudden, all these buttons on the remote are going to be useless, and there's that just unused part of the TV. It's just not a long-lasting, compelling.
What here's the difference is once they finalize a universal standard to Sling video from any device to it, then all of a sudden you're offloading all the processing capability to your smartphone, to your external box, to your remote control or whatever. That is the point at which I will say, yes, all televisions should come with universal receivability built in. And then
it's funny. Google just announced that they've got some product partners with speakers today that can use Google Cast to send audio to the speakers directly.
Totally
which
cool
is
with
exactly
that.
what you're talking about. You're like, just do that with television.
Yes.
For video. Why
Yes.
not?
Offload all of the processing, offload all of the searching to better, smarter devices who are better at the job.
Yeah. Well, not the processing, not the video processing, but the searching and everything.
Yes.
All right. Let's take a break, Brian, and thank our sponsor.
It's you this week.
Is it? Oh, thank me for creating the year in tech history, illustrated by Scott Johnson, which you can find at tommerrittbooks.com. I mentioned this earlier. The year in tech history collects things that happened on every day in tech history. So what is today? January 5th. If you look in the today in tech history, year in tech history, you'll find that Warner Brothers showed the very first color newsreel featuring the Tournament of Roses parade in the Rose Bowl football game on January 5th, 1948.
I don't want to be the one to break this to you, but there's some kind of mistake on the Kindle page for your thing.
What?
I mean, it looks like it's normally $15 for this book, but it's listed as only $3.99.
What?
You're not gonna make hardly any money on that.
You should run, don't walk, to buy that right now. Because you know what that means? That means Amazon just like cut their profit margin way down, because I get the same amount no matter how many this is.
Oh, that's great. Awesome. Well, then by all means, which, by the way, that happened when we released the Scam School book as well. There was a while where I was looking at it, and I'm like, they are selling this at a loss, and they just want to beat iTunes right now. And so I told everybody to jump on it. That's great.
All right. Anyway, you can find it there at Amazon for really cheap, or even free digital versions, as well as Kindle versions and Nook versions and all that at tommerrittbooks.com.
Sweet.
Let's move on to the front lines.
Shall we?
Hey, why not?
Front lines.
Samsung announced the UHD Alliance, Ultra HD Alliance, to set standards for 4K content. UHD is another name for televisions that have a similar resolution to 4K. They want to set content, terminology, delivery standards. Sony, Panasonic, and Sharp are also involved, as well as content makers Disney, Fox, Warner Brothers, Netflix, and DirecTV. Dolby and Technicolor are also included. A lot of this is driven by marketing, Brian. They just want to clear up what is the difference between UHD and this 4K that I've been hearing about. But it's also about making sure that all the content that's out there can be played on all the TVs.
Yeah, but I believe also this is finalizing standards for color ranges. And there's all kinds of frame rates and stuff that make for it. To be honest, last week I asked about 4K TVs for being a monitor on my main computer, and got a lot of people tell me wait until this is all resolved. Hey man, TiVo announced a new feature for the Romeo and Mini devices called One Pass. The feature lets you watch all episodes on a TV series across Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, and your regular TV service. However, it displays the episodes on one screen, no matter the source. Then it can track them as you watch them. This sounds like it's maybe a little bit of can I stream it built in?
Yeah, I can't wait for this because I have TiVo for over the air. And if all of a sudden I could be like, let me catch up on stuff like The Librarians, for instance, that just came out. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, the older episodes might be on Netflix, even though it's in its first season. John, does this appeal to you?
Yeah, I don't have TiVo, but I would love to see Roku get something like this, especially someone who just cut the cord, because I like something like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like the first season is on Netflix right now. I then, because I didn't keep up with it on the DVR, I had to buy a couple of episodes on Amazon, and then I watched like the last 5 on Hulu. So I watched it all on like 3 different services. So this would be great.
Awesome.
Hollywood Reporter says early estimates of 2014 movie ticket sales peg the number at $1.26 billion for 2014. That would be the lowest number of ticket sales since 1995, when they sold $1.21 billion. It would also be a 6% drop from 2013. Revenues also dropped 5%, which they had been rising as ticket prices had been increased. So bad news for theaters all over there.
It's bad news for boring theaters using a traditional business models. I mean, meanwhile, you have places like the Alamo Drafthouse exploding and opening up new franchises all across the country.
Do you go to the movies, John?
I do, but it's mostly like kids movies at a matinee, but it's we'll go on a Sunday matinee and it still costs us $30 to go see, a movie that's one kid price, 2 adults, and you're not at an awesome theater and it's $30. So it's, they're not putting in a lot of value for how much you have to pay for it.
I want to do an extension here though, because I had a funny conversation this weekend. Eileen and I wanted to watch the movie Boyhood. It's up for a Golden Globe and it'll probably be up for Oscars. And it's available for purchase at $12.99, and it's coming to rental for I think $4.99 January 6th. And we had time to watch it on Saturday night, and Eileen said, "Nah, let's just wait for it to come to rental. It'll be cheaper. We only want to watch. We don't really want to own it." And I said, "Well, wait a minute. We paid $30 to go see The Imitation Game. Why wouldn't we pay less than that for both of us to watch this movie and in the comfort of our own home?" But there is a perceptual block there of like, yeah, but then I don't want to own it.
Right. Well, and I guess that's the whole thing. Like, I used to get mad where it's like, okay, fine, episodes are only $1.99 the day after The Walking Dead comes out, but I don't want to buy it if I haven't seen it yet. I don't want to own it. Why can't I rent it for $99? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's some of that weird price nuttiness we have in our brain. Hey, man, The Interview. It showed up in more places since last Monday. It's available on demand in the U.S. on several cable systems, including DirecTV, on the Vudu online service, and in a few hundred more theaters. Do you think everyone's kind of relaxing their white knuckle grip? You feeling dumb now, AMC? You feeling dumb, Cinemark?
I put this in like right after it happened, I think Tuesday or Wednesday. And then by today, it felt like such old news. Like, oh, right. I guess The Interview's still out.
Yeah. Dude, it was white hot there for a little bit. We got stories about how people watched it at home. John, did you see The Interview yet?
I haven't. I've been keeping up with all the news about it, but I haven't VOD'd it, and I haven't gone to the movies to see it either. Because again, same thing.
Why do you hate America, John?
Yeah, it's about Hitler ruining North Korea, and then he gives an interview about how he teamed up with Nixon to defeat Frost.
I thought Teddy Roosevelt was in there too.
Yes, well, I mean, he was just doing bench presses in the background the whole time.
By the way, just for the record, John Anelio loves America. All postseason NFL playoff games, including the Super Bowl, will be available online in North America. You'll have to have a cable subscription or Verizon's $5 a month NFL Mobile Premium Pass. I think it's also part of the Everything Pass. In 230 other countries outside of North America, you'll need to subscribe to NFL's Game Pass service, which apparently costs around $70.
Yeah, so this boils down to, I mean, I guess if we're gonna summarize this is like pretty much you could see all the games thanks to the NFL app, right?
Yeah, it's all streaming. There's nothing that's like even like you have to watch it on your regular service. There is a way, even if it's not a cord-cutting way, to watch all of these. I
guess where we're at now is between this and the ESPN story. The new story is what's left for sports to be available to stream online.
Yeah. So there you go, sports fans. This is a very sporty episode of Cordkillers, and that's it for the front lines.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
Happy New Year.
Let's see what's under surveillance. Some of you may remember us watching Chris Carter's The After last February when it was put up for a pilot on Amazon, and Amazon greenlit it, and we were like, okay, it wasn't that great, but maybe I'll want to see the full season. Well, you're not going to be able to because Amazon dropped the series before shooting began. So no Chris Carter series The After.
All right, can we just call this what it is? At the time, Chris Carter's The After was one of the lead picks because it was the one that was voted the highest in their pilot season program, where they're all saying, like, which of these do you guys like? Please provide free test marketing for us. And they're like, well, of these 8 turds, this one has a couple of peanuts in it, so we'll take that one.
Ew.
And then they went and they made Transparent, and Transparent is beautiful and amazing and the soul-redeeming quality of the entire Amazon Prime original programming system. And they're all like, oh, we can make good stuff, like really good stuff. And then they're like, I mean, there's a few peanuts in there, but get out of here.
Yeah, it's not the Nutella of Transparent or Mozart in the Jungle, which is the current big Amazon hit. And John, you've been watching that, right?
I have, yeah. It's my wife and I I think we have one episode left. There's 10. I was gonna start arguing with Brian because I was gonna say I think Mozart in the Jungle is very good. I don't know if either of you guys have watched
yes,
it. Yes.
The only reason I didn't mention that one is because I couldn't access the title in that brief moment. But yes, those are the two shining examples. Transparent, and I hear great things about Mozart in the Jungle.
Yeah, it's great, and I watched the pilot. I gave their free test marketing for them, but the pilot's okay. It gets really good right by the second episode, and I like that they're so in-depth music with it. It's pretty authentic. I went to a music college, and I was around a lot of people like that. My wife's parents are both musicians. My father-in-law is a classical clarinetist, and he loves it too because they get it pretty. I mean, it's sensationalized a little bit. It's like they're a little more crazy than typical musicians are. There's a little more sex and drugs than are typically in that. But it's pretty good though. It's pretty accurate in terms of the actual playing and the nuttiness. So it's really good and it's funny.
Awesome.
What else you've been watching?
I've been watching. So again, it's I had all these shows DVR'd and then I lost them all. So I had to figure out a way. So I've been watching Arrow because I loved the first season when I watched it on Netflix, and I was DVRing the third season, and so right now I'm like sort of halfway through the second season of that on Netflix, and I'll have to buy a few episodes and then watch the rest on Hulu. But that I love it. And I'm not a DC guy. I'm much more of a Marvel guy, but I think it's so well done. I think just an overall storyline and reveals and it's a superhero show, but I just love it. I mean, I know it's a little melodramatic. I feel like they keep
getting better as the episodes go along too.
Yeah, definitely, and that's really fun. I've been digging that, and I've actually been watching some old stuff. Like I'm really into Stargate, so that's sort of my like if I need to put something on to fall asleep, I've been watching Stargate Atlantis because I've been watching that because all the Stargate stuff is on Amazon Prime. It's all the seasons of 10 seasons of SG-1 and 5 seasons.
So that's a rewatch
Atlantis.
For you?
Yeah, that's a rewatch. I'm not. Yeah, because I watched it all when it was all on Netflix, and Netflix had it all at one point, and I watched it all there. But it's not on Netflix anymore. Now it's on Prime, and it's all there. All 10 seasons, all 5 of Atlantis. I think both seasons of Stargate Universe is there. So 17 seasons of Stargate is there for you if you want to watch it.
Man, I wonder if this is an artifact of having all of these available in an all-you-can-eat system, or an artifact of the fact that we're all just getting old enough that we become those guys that just want to rewatch stuff that we watched once a long time ago.
I'm typically not a rewatcher at all because I don't really watch that much stuff, and when I'm going to watch something, it's going to be something new. But that's kind of if I'm sleeping, if I'm like trying to sleep, I don't want to put something new on because then I'm going to miss it. So this is like if I fall asleep while I watch this, I've already seen it, so I don't care. And it is kind of comforting, but interesting enough, but not so interesting where I'm going to be upset if I fall asleep. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that one.
It's good, just not that good, which is what you want.
Yes, it's not
comfortable and familiar, like an old blanket.
Yes.
What's really fun, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, if you watch Stargate Atlantis, you have Khal Drogo as Ronin. He comes in the second season of Stargate Atlantis, and he's on for 4 seasons of that. So if you are a Game of Thrones fan, you will enjoy Stargate Atlantis just to see Khal Drogo kick butt. It's really
awesome.
Good. Yeah.
And speak English. Yeah.
Yes, speak English. Well, mostly English. There's a lot of grunting. He's more of a physical actor in that too.
True.
There's not a lot of speaking of English for him in that one either, but a little more than no Dothraki in that. That's for sure.
Hey, Tom, so I watched episode 4 of Marco Polo. I assume we'll talk about that in spoiler in time, right?
Yep.
I would have watched more because I'm starting to like Marco Polo. Spoiler alert.
All right.
The spoiler to the spoiler end that's coming up. But every time I find myself with idle time, I was like, I guess it's time for me to watch Marco Polo. And then I think, or I could watch another Candy episode of The Prophet. The Prophet was the episode, the show we talked about last week, where it's about Marcus Lemonis, who comes in and fixes businesses. It's very much a reality show. It has all the tropes where they trick people into situations where they have to get upset and cry and relive their darkest memories so that we can all feel schadenfreude. But it also has like sound business stuff in there. I like it a lot. In fact, I'm in the middle of listening to a podcast, Grantland, where he interviews Marcus Lemonis. Is really interesting. Also, my daughter has discovered and fallen deeply in love with Cowboy Bebop. So I'm rewatching all of Cowboy Bebop with her, and man, she gets it. We're now in the last like 6 episodes. It's funny at the right level and so on. And my youngest, my 7-year-old, I started on Futurama, and
Nice.
I'm not normally a rewatcher, but it was amazing to me to go back to season 1 and start playing, and it was astonishing how many of the little bits that I clearly remembered. Like, I internalized those jokes so deeply that the moment they land on the moon and they go through the ride, I'm thinking, you know, we're whalers on the moon, we carry a harpoon, but there ain't no whale, so we tell tall tales, and we sing. But it's like as it's happening, it's amazing how much of that stuff sticks with you, and it holds up. The only thing that's a little bit weird is, you know, since all of the voices are Billy West, is that his name? You could tell he's figuring him out a little bit. You know, he hasn't quite hit his stride, but that, you know, again, that's to be expected with a first season of anything.
We got to see, as I mentioned earlier, The Imitation Game, which is Benedict Cumberbatch, a bunch of British stars, and about Alan Turing. And
was it good?
It was great. It was one of what Eileen and I realized when we went there was, this is the movie that shows you why you're willing to go through the trouble to go to the theater, right? Because it's not just the cost. It's also I got to park, and then I got to wait in line. And even if I bought my ticket ahead of time, there's always a little bit of hassle. And then sitting, you know, a little bit before the show. But when you come out of a theater after seeing a movie that satisfies you, it raises your expectation for movies a little bit over what you would watch at home. This one totally satisfied us. It didn't have to be a big blockbuster with special effects or anything. It was just a really well-told story with great actors, and I enjoyed it immensely.
Now, as somebody who's savvy to the real story of Alan Turing, did you feel like it did justice to the historical narrative as you understand it?
Yeah, I don't get too critical of that sort of thing with historical movies because I understand that real history doesn't always make the best story. I prefer it when they stick really close. This one sticks pretty close. There's a lot of questions about Alan Turing's life as well, and this movie makes decisions about some things that people are still debating whether they're true or not. So, you know, you may have a problem with that if your theory of Alan Turing's life doesn't come down on the side of the movies does. But overall, I thought they stuck pretty close, pretty well.
Yeah.
Also, you know, Marco Polo, The Shield, big fat quiz of the year, Channel 4 in the UK. You gotta love that, and you can get it. I think you can usually find it somewhere on YouTube, but it's just a hilarious quiz show, and they bring on comedians. Usually, Daniel Ayoade from the It Crowd is on it, which he is this year. It's funny, good funny stuff.
Dude, we have a controversy brewing just around the corner here. We got to take a look at the Cordkillers Winter Movie Draft.
So there's going to be an asterisk next to this, no matter who wins. Brian Brushwood is in front. The Hobbit continues to bring in the dollars, Brian.
I did not expect this. I was not prepared for this. I had decided last week that I lost, and that's the end, and Scott deserved it. However, because by the rules, it's box office taken, and the interview right now, if you look at the sheet at draft.diamondclub.tv, you'll notice that Scott is currently listed with Selma, which brought in just over $2 million in its box office gross. However, even if he had the interview, which is his other pick, it would be $4 million grossed in theaters, and who knows, maybe it'll keep on going. But the bulk of the money from the interview came from online sales, which I believe on opening weekend was around $12 million, but they don't count. And so you're right. We have a messy, nasty asterisk of a controversy for the end here. I don't know how we're going to resolve this. I mean, I guess by the letter of the rules that we set up, right now I'm in first, and who knows? Maybe we'll see a resurgence of interview fever.
I think we should probably give him back the interview if it makes more than Selma.
Oh, yes. And that was determined. And in fact, somebody asked, I did get an email saying, like, did he get it and then want it back or something? Here's what happened. The interview announced they were not going to release. At that time, the commissioner, Dan Dirks, said, okay, well, because your movie's not coming out, we will assign you the best available one based on projections, which was Selma. And he says, great. And then it came back and the interview is suddenly back on. So we went to Scott and says, you have a choice. You could stick with Selma or you could go with the interview. He picked the interview. The sheets are apparently complicated to update. So in my mind, he gets the interview because right now it's made more in box office.
Yeah,
but even if that's the case, even with
the
that,
Hobbit is in front, and I have to believe that we just kind of have to play it out that way.
Yeah. I mean, look, it was already a wild
when I say
card.
The Hobbit, I mean Brian.
But I mean,
Brian's
we deal with
Hobbit.
this all the time. That's the nature of the game, right? Is movies get moved to different places, and you have to take a substitution, and sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't. Here's my only hope is that The Hobbit keeps raking in enough money to where I win by enough that there's no question that even if the interview had gone according to plan, that I still would have won. But I don't think that'll be the case. I think I'm going to win with a big old asterisk next to my name.
Well, that, like I said, there's going to be an asterisk just because there will always be an argument that if something else had happened, something else would have happened, right? So
yeah, but it didn't, did it, Tom? Did the other thing happen?
No. That's why you put the asterisk, though.
All right, fair enough. You want to take some dispatches from the front?
Let's do. Dispatch these to their doom. Speaking of the interview, Scott wrote in and said, this is the first movie I've ever rented on Google Play, and that process was smooth as butter. I played it on my phone, sent it to my 60-inch TV through Chromecast, and they had the experience that Brian had during his pause, where actors and music info popped up on my phone in real time, and as the actors in the scene changed, the actor bubbles on my phone changed just as quickly. Even my wife was impressed, and that is a major feat since she generally doesn't give a hoot about these kinds of bells and whistles. We have typically been a big user of torrents and Netflix for movies, but this newly discovered feature is more than enough motivation for me to get farther away from torrents and go legit. I'm sure we will be using this method for many movies in the future.
Yeah, and what stuck out to me was you watched the interview on your Chromecast, right? And as I described to you the whole event of like...
No, I watched it on YouTube app on Apple TV.
Got it. So that's why you didn't get any of the pause
That's why I didn't get any of this stuff. Because apparently every other way I could have watched it would have had all those things you're talking about.
Yeah, well, and I thought that was cool because what I liked about it on my desktop was I hit pause and then you saw the circles. And what I liked about it, and I think I said this, was that it brought a virtual second screen experience, but not in a way that distracted you. Whereas this is a true second screen experience because while the show's going on, you have your phone down in front of you. You can glance down at any time and see who's on first. Yeah.
Right there, yeah.
Anthony from Dallas thanks us profusely for turning him on to so many different shows, including Avatar: The Last Airbender, and he says, I need some help with 3 things. Number 1, Ultraviolet Digital. How does this work, and what's the best resource of information as to proper utilization of this product? To which I reply, it's a great question. It's a great, great question. A lot of people asking that question. People doing ultraviolet should probably address that question.
Wait, what's the question again?
like how does ultraviolet work? I think ultraviolet has a massive branding problem. It's not obvious to people. They're the ones selling this. Why do we have to explain it?
Here's the thing about ultraviolet. You shouldn't be thinking about ultraviolet. You shouldn't be asking this question if they're doing it right. You should just log in, buy a movie, and know, the way things work in this universe is now that I've bought that movie, it's available on all my streaming services, except for Apple, because they don't play with anybody, right? That's the way it's supposed to work. The problem is the ultraviolet consortium doesn't always work that way. So when I buy a movie on Vudu, it does show up at Target Ticket. And when I buy it on Target Ticket, it shows up for Vudu. That's the way it's supposed to work, and it does. But sometimes you buy a movie on one service, and it doesn't show up on the other service because they're like, oh, we don't have an agreement with that studio. That studio is not part of the ultraviolet consortium, right? So I buy a Disney movie on Vudu. It doesn't show up on Target Ticket. So then ultraviolet's like, well, we should brand the movies that are available in this system as ultraviolet. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, what's ultraviolet? And how do I make use of it? And what does it matter? And it just doesn't work as smoothly. The reason Disney's got the Apple advantage here is Disney is we're going to control all of our movies. We're going to make all of our deals the same way. And we're going to do it with the biggest players, Google and Apple. So that when you have one on one, you've got it on the other, and it works the best. It's the smoothest.
Right on. Number 2, his question is, best HD TV antenna available and the best TV guide / DVR box available. I think for over-the-air stuff, we like the Leaf, and we like the TiVo Romeo. Is that our favorite right now?
Yeah, Channel Master, I haven't tried since they updated it, and a lot of people say Channel Master now does all the things that the Romeo does. So you might want to look into Channel Master for the DVR. Leaf, there's so many of those flat antennas out there that do just as well as the Leaf. You might want to shop around and look at some reviews, but the Leaf for sure will do well.
Yeah, and then finally he says he's never been interested in sports drafts ever before, but he loves the movie draft. He wants to know if there's a website where he could play along and do his own movie draft. The best I know of right now is T2T2 is working on a beta product, hopefully ready for this year's big summer movie draft, the monstrous 2015 season. If you go to boxofficedraft.com, I think it's out of season right now because there's no drafts being run, but boxofficedraft.com, put together by Chat Realm's very own T2T2, in development, but we're hoping it'll be up and running for the big leaves.
Oh, and by the way, to actually answer his first question, uvvu.com is the Ultraviolet website, and that has all of the information that the Ultraviolet Consortium has for you to read.
Right on.
uvvu.com. John Anelio, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's my pleasure. I'm a big fan of the show. I'm happy to be here.
Dude,
I'm a big fan of your music too, man. Tell
Thanks.
people where they can find it.
You can find my music at johnanelio.com, and you could download a lot of it for pay what you want. There's also if you just search on iTunes or Spotify and all that kind of stuff, you can find me there too. And what I've been doing even more lately is the podcast. So the podcast is Functional Nerds. That's with my co-host Patrick Hester, and we interview lots of people like Tom and others, but a lot of science fiction and fantasy authors. Recently, W.C. Bowers and Sam Sykes and lots of other folks. We've been doing that show for almost 5 years now. So. If you like Sword and Laser, we're sort of like the JV Sword and Laser. So
I wouldn't call you the JV. I feel like you're complimentary. Like,
yeah, it's a similar kind of a thing. So we got that going, and Patrick and I are actually going to be the media guests of honor at Capricorn, which is in Chicago. That's in February. So if you're in the Chicago area, Patrick and I will be there and probably do a live podcast and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, just Google Functional Nerds and you'll find that too.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Brian, we have successfully concluded another Cordkillers. How do you feel?
I feel like we finally won the battle. You'll notice there's a big banner behind me that says mission accomplished.
Yeah.
We've clearly killed all the cords and we win.
If you disagree, you can email us, cordkillers@gmail.com, or you can just jump in the chat room when we do this live on Mondays at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern time, which you can find at diamondclub.tv.
We think you're rad. See you guys next time.
Cordkillers.com is our website. You're awesome.
Bye. Your face is awesome.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.